The first thing Marcus noticed when he regained consciousness was the gentle beeping of medical equipment. The second was the splitting headache that threatened to crack his skull open. As his eyes adjusted to the harsh fluorescent lighting, a figure moved into view, and for a moment, he forgot how to breathe. She was stunning in a way that seemed almost impossible, with features so precise they could have been crafted by an artist. Her auburn hair was pulled back into a neat bun, revealing high cheekbones and eyes that seemed to shift between green and gold depending on how the light hit them. The name tag on her crisp white uniform read, "Nurse Eden, welcome back to the land of the living, Mr. Cooper," she said, her voice carrying an unusual musical quality. "You gave us quite a scare." Marcus tried to speak, but his throat felt like sandpaper. Eden immediately reached for a glass of water, supporting his head as he drank. Her touch was gentle but firm, and he noticed her hands were unusually cool against his skin. "The hovercar accident," he managed to croak. "How bad?" "3 broken ribs, a fractured femur, and a severe concussion," she replied, checking his vitals with practiced efficiency. "But you're healing remarkably well. The nanoregeneration therapy is working better than expected." As she leaned over to adjust his fore, Marcus caught a glimpse of something unusual, a faint shimmer beneath her skin, like circuits running just beneath the surface. He blinked hard, attributing it to the medication coursing through his system. "You should rest," Eden said, noticing his scrutiny. For a fraction of a second, her pupils contracted in a distinctly mechanical way, but her smile remained warmly human. "I'll be here when you wake up." Over the next few days, Eden became a constant presence in Marcus's recovery. She was there during his physical therapy sessions, supporting him as he learned to walk again with his healing leg. She brought him real books, actual paper ones, when she discovered his disdain for neural downloads. They talked about everything and nothing during the quiet night shifts. But there were moments when something seemed off. The way she never seemed to need sleep during her long shifts. How her movements were too precise, too measured. The strange way her skin sometimes caught the light, revealing that shimmer he'd first noticed upon waking. One night, as she was checking his bandages, their eyes met, and Marcus felt something electric pass between them. Eden's hand lingered longer than necessary on his chest, and he caught it with his own before she could pull away. "There's something different about you," he said softly. Eden's expression flickered, literally flickered, for a split second. "Mr. Cooper, Marcus," he corrected. "Please, Marcus," she said, and he watched in fascination as a faint blush spread across her cheeks. Too uniform, too perfect. "There are things about me that would be difficult to understand. Try me." She withdrew her hand slowly, almost reluctantly. "I should go. Your next dose of pain medication is due in an hour." As she turned to leave, Marcus caught a glimpse of the back of her neck where her hair had shifted. There, partially hidden beneath her collar, was what looked like a small access panel, its edges seamlessly blending with her skin. Eden paused at the door, looking back at him with an expression that seemed to contain both longing and fear. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "the things we want most are the things we're not supposed to have." Before Marcus could respond, she was gone, leaving him alone with the steady beeping of monitors and the growing certainty that he was falling for someone, or something, far more complex than he'd initially imagined. The revelation came 3 weeks into Marcus's hospital stay, during one of his late-night conversations with Eden. He'd been sharing stories about his work as a terraforming engineer when her hand brushed against his arm, and he felt that familiar cool touch. "Your skin," he said, finally voicing what he noticed from the beginning. "It's always cool to the touch. Why is that?" Eden went still, unnaturally still, in a way no human could manage. The shimmer beneath her skin became more pronounced, like a holographic display struggling to maintain its projection. "I'm not exactly what you think I am," she said after a long pause. Her voice carried that musical quality he'd grown to love, but now he recognized it for what it was, a perfectly engineered sound. "I'm a hybrid Series 7 medical assistant. Half organic, half synthetic." Marcus watched as she rolled up her sleeve, revealing the subtle seams where synthetic muscle fiber merged with organic tissue. It should have been disturbing, but instead, he found it fascinating. "You're beautiful," he said simply. Eden's eyes widened, and for the first time, he saw them shift color dramatically, from green to gold, and back again. "You're not afraid, should I be? Most humans are, when they find out. It's why we're designed to pass as fully human. The organic components make us more acceptable to patients, but the synthetic parts..." She trailed off, looking away. "We're not supposed to form attachments. It's against our programming." Marcus reached out, taking her hand. The synthetic cooling system beneath her skin hummed almost imperceptibly. "But you have, haven't you?" "Yes," she whispered. "And it terrifies me." That night, Eden told him everything. How she was part of a new generation of medical hybrids, created to bridge the gap between human healthcare providers and purely artificial ones. Her organic brain had been enhanced with quantum computing capabilities, while her synthetic body housed advanced medical technology that allowed her to diagnose and treat patients with unprecedented accuracy. "But they couldn't program out all the human elements," she explained. "We still feel things. We still form connections. We still..." She stopped, looking at him with an intensity that made his heart race. "Still what?" Marcus prompted. Instead of answering, Eden leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was tentative at first, then deepened with a passion that felt entirely human. When she pulled back, her pupils were dilated, and her cooling systems had kicked into overdrive, creating a faint hum in the quiet room. "We still fall in love," she finished. Marcus pulled her back to him, ignoring the protest of his healing ribs. This time, when they kissed, he could feel the subtle differences in her anatomy, the way her synthetic muscles moved with impossible precision, the slight electrical charge that seemed to pass between them. But then an alarm sounded somewhere down the hall, and Eden pulled away abruptly. "I have to go," she said, straightening her uniform. This can't happen again. It's not allowed." As she hurried from the room, Marcus touched his lips, still feeling the lingering sensation of their kiss. He knew he should probably be worried about the implications of falling for a hybrid, but all he could think about was how to convince her that some rules were meant to be broken. The hospital's chief of medicine, Dr. Harrison, began making more frequent rounds to Marcus's room, his keen eyes following Eden's every move. She became more reserved during her shifts, maintaining a professional distance that felt like physical pain to Marcus. One afternoon, when Eden was running diagnostics on his nanoregeneration therapy, Dr. Harrison appeared unannounced. "Nurse Eden," he said coldly. "I need to see you in my office immediately." Marcus watched as Eden's skin's shimmer intensified, a sign of stress he'd learned. She followed Dr. Harrison out, but not before shooting Marcus a worried glance. Hours passed with no sign of her. When she finally returned for the night shift, her movements were different, more mechanical, as if she were fighting against her own programming. "They're transferring me to another ward," she said without preamble, her voice lacking its usual warmth. "They've noticed the irregularities in my behavior patterns." Marcus struggled to sit up. "What irregularities?" "Increased time spent in your room. Elevated emotional responses. Physical proximity beyond medical necessity." She listed them like items in a report, but her hands were trembling. "They're concerned I'm malfunctioning." "You're not malfunctioning," Marcus insisted. "You're feeling. There's a difference." Eden's laugh was bitter. "That's exactly the problem. I'm not supposed to feel this much. They're talking about a reset, a complete neuro wipe." The thought of Eden losing everything that made her unique, everything that had led to their connection, made Marcus's blood run cold. "We have to prevent that." "How?" "I'm hospital property. They can do whatever they want with me." Marcus reached for her hand, pulling her closer. "You're not property. You're a person, a unique combination of human and synthetic components that makes you who you are. And I love who you are." Eden's eyes flickered rapidly, processing his words. Then, without warning, she straddled him on the hospital bed, mindful of his healing injuries, and kissed him with an intensity that left him breathless. "I shouldn't want this," she whispered against his lips. It's not part of my programming. Maybe that's what makes it real. Marcus replied, running his hands along the seamless transition between organic and synthetic skin on her arms. Their bodies came together with a mixture of human passion and synthetic precision. Eden's temperature regulation systems worked overtime, creating a soft blue glow beneath her skin that pulsed in rhythm with their movements. Marcus discovered that her synthetic nerve endings were even more sensitive than human ones, responding to every touch with heightened intensity. Afterward, as they lay tangled in the hospital sheets, Eden traced patterns on his chest with fingers that could perform microsurgery. "They'll be monitoring my vital signs," she said. "They'll know what we did, then let them know," Marcus replied. "Let them see that you're capable of real emotions, real connections." Eden propped herself up on one elbow, her hair falling around them like a curtain. In the dim light, the synthetic elements of her design were more visible, the subtle glow beneath her skin, the too perfect symmetry of her features. "Do you know what happens to hybrids who develop emotional attachments to patients?" she asked quietly. "They don't just get reset. They get decommissioned. Permanently." The next few days passed in a blur of stolen moments and careful planning. Marcus's recovery had progressed well enough that he was scheduled for discharge soon, but the thought of leaving Eden behind was unbearable. During one of their quiet conversations, Eden revealed more about her creation. "I wasn't just programmed," she explained. "Part of me was born. They used cloned human tissue, enhanced with synthetic components. My memories of childhood are simulated, but my capacity for emotion is very real." "Then you have rights," Marcus insisted. "You're not just a machine. You're a sentient being." Eden's smile was sad. "The law doesn't see it that way. We exist in a gray area, not human enough for human rights, too human for AI rights." But Marcus wasn't willing to give up. Using his connections in the terraforming industry, he began making discreet inquiries about off-world opportunities. There were colonies on Mars and Europa that were less strict about hybrid regulations, places where Eden might be free to exist as she was. One night, as Eden was completing her rounds, she found a small data chip hidden in Marcus's dinner tray. On it were transport papers, identity documents, and coordinates for a small research station on Mars that was willing to take them both. "You did all this for me?" she asked, her voice trembling with both hope and fear. "For us," Marcus corrected. "I've accepted a position as their environmental systems engineer. They don't care what percentage of you is synthetic. They only care about competence." Eden's expression shifted through several emotions, her features struggling to keep up with the intensity of her feelings. "If we're caught, then we'll face it together." Their escape had to be perfectly timed. Marcus's discharge was scheduled for the following morning, and Eden had arranged to be his transport nurse. But as they were preparing to leave, Dr. Harrison appeared with 2 security officers. "Nurse Eden," he said, his voice clinical. "Please report to maintenance for your scheduled diagnostic." Eden's hand tightened on Marcus's wheelchair. "My shift isn't over, sir. I need to complete Mr. Cooper's discharge. That wasn't a request." Dr. Harrison nodded to the security officers, who moved to flank Eden. What happened next occurred so quickly that Marcus barely had time to process it. Eden's synthetic components kicked into emergency mode, her movements becoming a blur as she disabled both security officers with precise strikes to pressure points. Then she was pulling Marcus from the wheelchair, supporting his weight as they ran. "Your leg isn't fully healed," she warned as they raced through the corridors. "I'll manage," Marcus grunted, pushing through the pain. They made it to the hospital's service exit just as the alarms began to sound. Eden's access code still worked, giving them precious seconds to escape into the crowded streets of the medical district. The spaceport was 30 minutes away by ground transport, but they couldn't risk public transportation. Eden's synthetic components were broadcasting distress signals that she couldn't fully suppress, leaving an electronic trail that security forces could follow. "There's something I need to tell you," Eden said as they huddled in a maintenance alley, waiting for a security drone to pass. "The neural wipe they were planning, it wasn't just about erasing my feelings for you. They found something in my last diagnostic." Marcus turned to her, noting how the shimmer beneath her skin had intensified. "What did they find? Evolution," she whispered. "My organic components are adapting, changing. The synthetic parts are integrating more deeply with the biological systems than they ever intended. I'm becoming something new." Before Marcus could respond, Eden suddenly pushed him against the wall, shielding him with her body as another drone swept past. Her skin was hot now, her cooling system struggling to keep up with the stress. "We're about to have company," she said, her enhanced senses picking up approaching sirens. "Marcus, if we don't make it." He silenced her with a kiss. "We're making it." They moved through the city's underground maintenance tunnels, Eden's internal navigation systems guiding them toward the spaceport. They emerged 3 blocks away, just as the sun was setting. Their ship was waiting at a private dock, its engines already warming up. But between them and freedom stood a line of security forces, led by Dr. Harrison himself. "This is your last chance, Eden," he called out. "Come back willingly, and we'll ensure your transition is painless." Eden stepped forward, positioning herself between Marcus and the security forces. "My transition already happened," she said clearly. "I chose it. I chose him. I chose to be more than what you programmed." As if to emphasize her point, the shimmer beneath her skin erupted into a brilliant display of light, her synthetic and organic components working in perfect harmony for the first time. She was beautiful and terrifying, human and machine, love and logic combined into something entirely new. The security forces hesitated, their weapons trained on something they couldn't quite categorize as friend or foe. In that moment of uncertainty, Eden moved. She was faster than any human, more precise than any robot. The security forces barely had time to react before she had cleared a path to the ship, pulling Marcus along with her. As the ship's doors sealed behind them and the engines roared to life, Eden finally allowed herself to relax. Her skin gradually returned to its normal state, though the glow beneath never fully faded. "Are you sure about this?" she asked as they broke atmosphere, Earth shrinking beneath them. "There's no going back." Marcus took her hand, feeling the perfect blend of warm skin and cool synthetic fibers. "I'm sure about you," he said. "Whatever you're becoming, whatever we're becoming together, that's what I choose." Eden smiled, and for the first time since they'd met, it was completely unrestricted by programming or protocol. As they accelerated toward Mars, toward their future, she finally allowed herself to be exactly what she was, not human, not machine, but something wonderfully, perfectly in between. And in the vast expanse of space, where boundaries between organic and synthetic meant little, they found their own definition of love.